say.
Yes.
Put a shirt on.
I got one.
I like it, Joe.
I was trying to read it before.
Oh, okay.
I got it now.
All right. That's what I tell my wife all the time. I never make mistakes.
All right. We appear to be live streaming, so I think we're good. One second. One moment, please. Just making sure Dan can get in.
Joe, there's going to be a gentleman joining us that you know very well. As the whole town can join us, but
I was going to say, well, that'll narrow it down to about 1.2 million people.
you know this gentleman. His name is Bab Cabina.
I know him very well. I
Oh,
met
he
him
knows
once. I met him
Okay.
once.
Well,
Bob and I met him.
What?
Bob and I met him.
Well, he speaks very highly of you, so he.
Well, he doesn't know me then.
I get sick, Bucky.
He's just going to come in on the meeting and listen, right? Because I don't think it's agenda.
I don't, yeah, so on our agenda, one of the things it says is that public may send written comments or requests to speak by 12 o'clock Eastern of the day of our meeting. And I never got anything. So Sarah mentioned that he wanted to connect. At this point, it's stated that way, so I don't know if we can let him in. But what I did say is that I'm happy to connect with him and make sure there's a dedicated spot on the agenda for him at the next meeting. And if there's something we can do to help in the meantime, I'll happily do it. I didn't have anything from him before we started, and I didn't know until about 6 o'clock. So.
And I sent him an email letting him know that.
Yeah,
And
and
he connects too.
And I know he had talked to Chris Carter a few weeks back, so I don't know if, Chris had planned on mentioning something tonight, if he's even going to join us. I don't know, but when I seen that, I said, well, he's not really on the agenda, so we really can't discuss anything. But he's
I
welcome
know
to.
he sent out an email. I think it's about, he said that he had a meeting with the rest of the people on a point out there.
Yep.
And I think it's about the gate.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but.
Right. So it's not an agenda item right now, so we can't
Right.
cover it. Not that it's not something we want to cover. I'm hoping there's an opportunity to connect with him and then get him on as an agenda item
Yep.
specifically for next
Exactly.
meeting.
Hi, Dan.
So-
Hey, Dan.
How are you, Dan?
And it's here. Excellent.
Hi, Dan.
I invited Dave Paul to join us for the dog park.
Oh, now we got problems.
Well, absolutely. That's why we wanted him here.
Because he's going to say how life is rough.
It's like the worst dad joke ever.
He's in a great mood, folks. He's in a
all
great mood.
So on that note, it's 6:33. I'd like to call us to order. The only two absences that I see at the moment, because I've had to let everybody into the meeting, are Rachel, who sent her regrets. She's not going to be able to attend, and I don't have Chris listed here, but if he does log in, I'll add him into the meeting. So 6:03, let's kick it off. We do, in fact, have a quorum. The first thing that we need to do is review the meeting minutes. We've got May 28th here. Was our meeting on May 28th or was it June 4th? Am I just making things up here?
No idea.
Dana,
I had
Come
May
on,
28th
Dana.
written down.
Checking.
I just looked back at my calendar and it says it was on May 28th.
Yeah, I don't think we had one in June.
Yeah, no, you are correct. You are correct.
Yep.
So we're going to be,
Wait.
we'll do I guess we have to amend the meeting minute or the agenda just to say that we're approving May 28th, just to correct it on there. So can I get a motion just to amend the agenda here for that clerical error?
I make a motion to amend that
Thank you.
clerical error.
There we go. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
There we go. All right. All in favor, just raise your hand.
Aye.
Excellent. All right. So on that note, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes from May 28th.
I make that motion to accept the minutes. Oh, God.
All right. Can I get a
Uh-oh.
second? Dan seconds. All right. Any discussion or edits or changes?
I have none.
All right. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's see. Chris, were you able to join us?
Aye,
Hey there. Welcome. Just want to make sure I recorded your entry.
yes, thank you.
All right. I do not have a treasurer's report from Rachel on the agenda. Sarah, is there anything just from a financial standpoint that you want to have us note at this point in either a formal or informal capacity?
So just some things, I actually talked to Deborah today and she just kind of told us to like be careful about what we spend money on because of just like the whole town budget in general. And all we've been having to spend money on is things for like safety. So we did purchase some things for lifeguards, so like new umbrellas because the umbrellas keep breaking. So I purchased like good lifeguard umbrellas. We've had to do water testing. So like that, those are our expenses so far. We had to buy replacement pads for the AED. And then also did like some stuff for like cleaning supplies. So like just kind of we're keeping it at only like obviously like what's necessary like right now. And we had a porta potty, I think, invoice too. But that's it so far. And we had to actually buy more passes because we've already gone through the 2,000 day passes that we ordered at the beginning of the season. We've already gone through all of them. So I picked up new passes today. So hopefully that gets us through the summer, but we'll see. The beach has been very, very busy. So we went through the passes pretty quickly.
All the residents passes.
We still have residence passes. Like I don't know exactly how many we've gone through, but that's getting, it's less and less as the summer goes on. You know what I mean? Like we're going through rolls really quickly at first. I still have probably like 2 full rolls that I haven't even given the kids yet. And then they're in a roll at both beach too. So we have plenty of those right now. So.
Right. Sarah, do you want to just sort of roll into your the recreation coordinator's report?
Sure. So some of the things that I just wanted to talk about. So I sent some emails to the lifeguards and the gate attendants recently, just with like some reminders. And I sent those emails out to the whole rec commission so you guys could see them. And it's basically just reminders about for the lifeguards to like make sure they're like always alert, sitting up in the chair. And if they're not sitting in the chair, they can stand in front of it or stand near the water. Just so we're always like on top of things, ready for anything that might happen. And with the gate attendants, I sent them a reminder about like who can get a sticker, who can, like that we're charging the handicap parking, which I confirmed with Chris. We don't charge for handicap parking. For the Cove, we're charging. There's still some confusion about that because people who come to the beach are telling us not to. But so the kids, I'm not having the kids like argue with someone who says that, but we were told to anybody who comes through the gate at Fogland, you charge them. And that's what the kids have been doing. They've all been working really hard. We've had some tough situations come up at the beach, but they responded exactly how they should. As we know, I mean, like what happened yesterday, they're working on like an incident report for that. I've checked in with the kids who were working yesterday, and they seem to be doing okay. They were obviously like scared yesterday and still like I mean, that's a tough situation. So I'm just going to continue to like check in with them, make sure they're doing okay. But I'm in constant contact with like all the kids all the time when they're working, sometimes even when they're not working. They're asking me questions about the beach or different things. And like a lot of them want to work more hours, but we don't even have the hours to give them right now. But they're all working really well together. Like if somebody can't work, they switch. So, I mean, I think they're doing a really good job. So,
Well, a couple of the things I've been hearing, complaints were that cars were pulling in there with mass plates with 4 people in it, and the attendants were saying, "Anybody here from Tiverton?" And somebody says, "Yeah, I am," and they're letting him in for free instead of going by the registration on the vehicle. They've been letting people in by their driver's license, not by the registration on the vehicle. And the other was, a couple of people had mentioned to me, was there's a lot of the gate attendants, they're throwing a football around playing instead of in the booth where they should be. And I think that, if they have that much time, why don't one of them walk around, pick up some trash or pull some weeds down at Grinnell's? We could use some weeding down there. And those are a couple of the complaints that I've been getting from people down at Grinnell mostly. I haven't been down to Boglin that much, but the 3 issues that I've been hearing a lot about at Grinnell's Beach. So I don't know, I seen that you had said to them about checking the registration and the license, but the only way you should check the license is if it's a rental car. If it's a rental car, state plates, and the driver is from Tiverton, then they show your license, okay, you let them in. You don't have a residence pass, but you let them in. Then if they come back again, you do the same thing. If that vehicle doesn't have a Rhode Island plate on it, they should not be allowing them in without paying. And I'm afraid what's going to happen is, people are going to say, hey, let's just do away with the beach fees and let people go in for free, because nobody's abiding by what the rules are and the regulations. It's probably our fault because we didn't have an orientation at the beginning of the year like we should have, where we sat these kids down and said to them, hey, here's what you got to do. We haven't done that, and that's probably our fault more than theirs. But I just think it's something that they should be more attentive to, instead of just saying, okay, as long as somebody in the car is from Tiverton, let them go in. We're losing money, which in the long run is going to affect them, because if we start losing money, they're going to say, well, it's not worth doing this program anymore. Let's just open the beaches up and let everybody come and go as they please. And that's what I'm afraid.
Bob?
Yep. I think as a commission itself, we've failed to properly train these people, and that's anybody. That's all of the employees that fall under the Recreation Commission. That's our fault for not, properly training them. Some of the stuff that Joe brought up, I witnessed firsthand working down there and on Saturday morning, as far as, a car come in, there was 5 kids in a car, had a master plate. The attendant asked, anybody here from Tiverton? Yeah, I am. Okay, go ahead. And I even told him, I said, no, you can't do that. You have to go by the plate. Oh, that's the way we've done it in the past, and let the people go through. So as a commission, I think that we failed. We have to run this like a business. This is a business. We have to run this like a business where we have to make money. We're paying money out for gate attendants, for lifeguards, for, the coordinator. We're paying money out. So we have to run this as a business. And for every dollar we can get for cars going in, we need to get. The other problem we're having is down the Fogland. You can go there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to find anywhere between 15 to 20 cars, most of them mass, already there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I think what we should do is one of 2 things. Well, a couple of things. Number one, I think maybe we should start thinking about putting gate attendants there at 7 o'clock and start collecting this money. Like you're saying, people are looking to gain extra hours. We can do it that way. We're losing, and I'm going to be conservative over here, but we're losing about $500 on a weekend. And that's being very conservative with cars down there. They go down to the point, which is owned by the DEM. Joe and I went down there a couple of weeks ago and try to collect money, and they're like, "Oh, you can't collect money off of us. We're not a town beach. This is DEM property. You can't collect money off of us." And it's going around, and more people are knowing that they can beat the system by getting down there earlier. So we need to come up with some type of a plan to, recoup this money. It's not fair for everybody else to be, to be playing by the rules when you got 20 to 30 people that are not.
Well, if I may go on that, Bob, is a way to do it, but it depends on to what degree, let's say the chief of police wants to go. I know when I went down to Fogland on 4th of July, I went there first. And I just stood there out of the car, of course, and I was watching the people. It's nice when you see a police presence, okay? Now it says, uh-oh, it makes people think twice. If we went with your rule of thumb at 7 o'clock, and if you had, let's say, a special down there on the weekend at 7, that would be, of course, the chief of police call. That's not my call, it's a suggestion only. Not that I'm going to be there to collect money, but if you're going to have one of the kids there, you better have someone there to help to back this kid up. That's where it gets a little funky. Everybody, just like Grinnell, we have a gate, that's perfect. But we closed the gate. I went there Sunday and closed the gate at 10 o'clock. And you basically got to sit there and babysit and say, come on, people, let's go. I'm going to close the gate and you're going to get locked in. And all of a sudden, everybody packs up their fishing gear and you see how quick they leave.
Well,
And go ahead,
the first Saturday that we opened, Sarah and I went down. There was maybe 10 or 15 cars down there, Sarah?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we tried to collect money from the people that were down there. Nobody owned the cars. Nobody wanted to, own up to owning their cars.
Right.
So there's a couple of different routes we can go. I mean, we can, try opening up at 7. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. We can have the police get involved, maybe have them go down there and issue them parking tickets for parking illegally before the beach opens. Maybe if you do that, you hit them with a stiff fine. Maybe that'll stop it. But like I said, we got to run this as a business. And we're losing money. We're losing money.
If I can offer up just a couple different thoughts. One, the availability of gate attendants is something that's going to be tied into what our budgetary resources are in part, right? Because please remember that revenue that we bring in doesn't go back into rec. So it's very easy to have the conversation and say, oh, we should put more gate attendants there. But let's also be cognizant that if we do that, Sarah's working very diligently to maintain the budget within the framework of what we have. And we started this meeting by talking about, walking a fine line. So let's just be aware that it's not as simple as, your suggestion may make all the sense in the world, Bob, doesn't mean we can necessarily do it. I also do want to echo Ed's comment about the positions that we're putting some of the younger gate attendants in if we're asking them to go and essentially create conflict with people that may have pulled in before. I don't think that's what we want. I think if that's
Definitely not.
Right. So it's a place where we would have to engage the police department and get them to help with it. And as we talked about at the beginning of the season, when somebody pulls up, if they're giving an 18-year-old, 19-year-old gate attendant a lot of attitude, and Sarah and I have talked about this a lot, their response should be, okay. And the person goes, you take down the plate number, you take down the information about the car, and then they contact Sarah, who contacts the police to address it. So from a chain of communication, we can put people down there earlier. I think Grinnell's, the gate helps. It's going to be more difficult to do at Fogland just by the nature of the way the layout is. But I would offer up, it's something, let's take a look at a couple of different suggestions and see what we can come up with. Because I agree. It's an area where people pulling in early, it's something we would like to connect with. I also think when we look at some of the things that you guys mentioned where there are challenges, we're sitting here at a meeting that we have essentially monthly. I'm not sure that I think it's necessarily fair to Sarah if we're not communicating about these things earlier so she can address them. So what I would encourage everybody to do is just from a process standpoint, if you're seeing something, and a lot of what's in here was the result of somebody communicated something to me and I shared it with Sarah and she sent an email out the same day, started talking to her staff. Let's give her the opportunity to act on things if we see that there are challenges. They could be something completely accurate that we need to work with. But I think instead of us getting into a spot where we're waiting a period of time, let's just make sure we're acting on it sooner rather than later. Because we do have really good and hardworking kids. Sometimes they're kids and they do need to be reminded. And so you're going to see repetition in what we're communicating. There is absolutely places that we can improve, 100%, right? That's the nature of any business. And I agree with you, Bob. Are there places that we could be bringing in more revenue? Sure. You know, you look at what we did with the parking pass, and it's on our agenda to talk about and revisiting. There's missed revenue opportunities there from the way that the vote went down. And if just as a comparison point, Warren just approved a $5 resident fee. So are there other ways that we could be more of an efficient business? Sure. I think I look at it more as a resource for the residents and building and having policies in place that support putting and prioritizing our own residents first. And so when people from Massachusetts or others do come in, and sometimes, you know, we can get better about clarifying our policies. If we're not doing as good a job as a commission as we can, you're 100% right. Like it's something that our residents have a right to voice their concerns about. So it's going to be an ongoing process. This year is different than usual. You know, I'd love for us to kind of sit down and look at it and go, have a couple of people connect with Sarah about what she's seeing too, because she's down there all the time. And I hadn't heard the piece about the football. You know, if that's something that Sarah has seen and that there's a consistent concern about, great, let's address it, right? But I also think there are other pieces like the pass one and people sticking them onto windows that is in a better spot than it's been in past years. So we're going to have to stay diligent. We're going to have to keep hammering away. I don't think, you know, the whole system is broken here. But I you know, like anything else, we can get better at it. So Sarah, I don't know if you have any comments because we did derail a bit of your update. So I want to make sure you have a chance to kind of chime in on this as well.
I mean, I don't know. I think I agree where, like, if you tell me, because even like Ed told me something one of the kids did the other day, and then I talked to the kid right after I talked to Ed. So then, and the kid was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. But like, and they have it in writing, like it's in their binder. I've sent them reminder emails. We talk about it. And so like, they've been told what they're supposed to do. But like, I think Stu said this, they're kids. And like kids don't always do exactly what they're supposed to do when there's not an adult watching them. And it's just, there's two beaches. There's only one of me, and I'm pretty much there every single day. So 7 days a week. I can't be at both beaches from 9 to 4. And 7 would be. So
again, without committing to time changes, I hear Bob, your concern.
You paid the big dollars, though.
It's money. It's money that the town could use. I think it warrants discussion. Doesn't necessarily equate to action. The only other thing that I will say, having managed a number of 16, 17, 18-year-olds myself, is that accountability is something that has to be driven home to them. And I've been on the emails and I've been there when you communicated to it, but you know, this is their job. They're getting paid. Mm-hmm. So I have all the faith in the world in them being able to use this as a learning experience, and totally agree with where you're coming from. But from a town standpoint, you know, there is a balance in there. But I do think like the emails that you're sending out do help. And you know, the more that you're communicating and you're doing it really regularly with them, like I don't know if the commission realizes Sarah and I have probably 4 or 5 calls a week on this stuff. Right. So.
And I have like, if you look at like my phone, my whole list of text messages is all with the kids. Like, it's like, I don't even have friends. It's all people from.
Just don't take it the wrong way. I feel that it was because we didn't have an orientation with these kids at the beginning. And that's why a lot of these things are happening. So,
and I know our plan.
I know I've been dealing with kids for 50 years in basketball, from ages 6 years old to 19. And you're right. If there's not an adult there watching them all the time, they're going to get away with whatever they can get away with.
Right. And we had a plan to do an orientation, and then the whole world fell apart. Right. And we didn't even know if we were going to be able to open the beaches or what the guidelines were. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're opening tomorrow. Yep. So.
And the other issue, Stu, and you had mentioned is, and I think Chris Carter's here. I was told handicap people from Rhode Island get in for free. Anybody from out of state has to pay. Now, somebody said, no, that's not good. When I was looking it up today, it said that Rhode Island handicap do not pay, but state do. So there's some confusion there as to whether they do or they don't. And that's an issue because somebody could come in handicap thing and go park in a spot where they're taking away a $15 or a $10, whatever. I don't even know what the spot's for, but and they're using a handicap, but yet they're taking up a pay spot. So, or they could just take the card, use it to get in, and then stick it under their seat, so they're not using it illegally. We'd never know. And if you look at some of the things that have been on Facebook or Tiverton happenings, people saying, "Oh, if you want to get into the beaches, there's a way of getting in without paying. You do this or you do that." There's a lot of that going around where people are trying to. Well, I'm just saying that has happened.
Yeah.
And
I've also
trying to deceive people.
Yeah. I also feel like, so the other day, this is just like an example of somebody texted Stu and told him that like RV cars were parked sideways and people were using tents to take up parking spots. And that's why Fogland was full. And Stu asked me that question and I was at the beach and I was like, that's not true at all. So like, I think people, you know what I mean? Like someone had a tent over a picnic table, which isn't a parking spot. A picnic, you can't park on a picnic table. And that was the only tent on the entire beach. So I do think sometimes communication's getting lost. And
people exaggerate. They want to try to steal.
Yeah. And then I think, but like at the beach, I'm like, no, like I'm here. That's not what's going on or something like that. So I think that happens too.
I think Joe's point about, and Bob's point about being able to do an orientation in future years is helpful. I mean, keep in mind that as a commission, I think we were like maybe the third or fourth town entity that was able to meet. I know town council did live meetings, budget committee, school. I think we might've been right after that. So, and we're the first non-like elected group. So if that tells you kind of where things are at, let's start to come up with a punch list of what we can do and where the questions are, and we'll answer them and we'll get it fixed. And then in places where we have ideas like, can we do stuff earlier in the mornings? You know, talking to Sarah and saying about where would the logistical challenges for something like that be? What would we bring in as revenue? Is it something that we can even account for from a budgetary standpoint? So I think there's a lot of good feedback here. I don't think we're going to solve it on this call per se, but I would encourage people that when you're getting this feedback, direct some of it to Sarah so she can handle it sooner rather than later.
Can I just say one other thing about the handicap pass parking?
Yes.
We do a lot of camping out in Maine and stuff. Now in Maine, if you have a handicap pass, you do not pay to go to state beaches. However, if you go to the town beaches, even with the handicap, you pay. So maybe at Grinnell's, we could probably get away with not charging for handicap for out of state. I'm talking about out of state vehicles, not vehicles registered in the state, but maybe down at Fogland, we should charge for a handicap out of state because it's basically, it's a town beach, not a state beach. Does anybody know what South Shore does, what Little Compton does?
Mm-mm.
I could find out.
Find out.
They charge.
They charge?
Yeah. They also, those guys, I don't know if you've looked at what they have this summer. They have resident only in the mornings until 10, and then general public comes in until 5, and then they clear the whole lot, and it's back to town residents from 5 till 10 p.m., which I know we don't do that. We don't have something that extreme, but it's something to think about because it does give the residents some peace and quiet if they want to use the beach.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff I think is an interesting way to look at it, and it might, it still doesn't account for it at places like Fogland where people are coming in earlier. That's something we'd have to figure out, but it's doing a little bit of research to look at what other towns are doing might give us some guidance on some ways to accomplish what we're trying to. The changing of parking fees piece, Bob, to your point, I'm not 100% clear right off the top of my head exactly how the fee structure works for the handicap parking, but I also would say that if we wanted to change anything, it's going to be a month because you got to get in front of the town council and then there has to be the open hearing. And so it's not going to be a quick change, but let's look at it as part of the holistic conversation.
The only thing I would mention on the handicap is, and this happened down Grinnell's, a person came in, handicap, Rhode Island, went in and ended up going down, way down the bottom to park. I went up and told him, I said, you're taking a spot of something we get paid for. There are open handicap spots. You have to park in an open handicap spot first. And they gave me a little bit of hard time. So I said, you don't have to. Just pay me the $15. You can stay here. Well, then they ended up moving to the handicap spot because that handicap spot is only for handicapped people. So if somebody has a handicap plate, they should, if a handicap spot's open, they should be made to take that handicap spot first because they're taken away from others.
Well, and I think that's a great example of a place where, whether it's an officer or in your case as a commission member, you were able to help the situation. Like I wouldn't want a 17 or 18-year-old kid to have to fight that battle, but I'm glad you did it. You get to be the bad guy.
I had my Tiverton recreation cap on, so I mean, they knew where I was from.
We should get you a cape.
Is Chris Carter online here?
I
Yes.
believe so.
Hi, Chris. Chris, I heard, and I meant to go see Rick, about, I call it the Cove, the infamous state back there. I heard something of a high tide line is the state. I mean, there's a lot more to this. I was going to ask you for clarity with that whole area back there.
So my understanding of the area is other than below mean high tide, which is accessible to anybody. There's nothing we can do about it. So that, you can have access to any beach below the mean high tide.
Okay.
Anybody can do that. The issue is getting there. So can you cross somebody's property to get there? The issue there is it's our property. So it's our beach, it's our bulkhead, it's our area of that cove. And I know that I'm getting a lot of flack from guys who have moorings out there and they think they're entitled because they paid for a mooring, that they're entitled to park there. That's not true. They paid for their mooring, no different than anybody else pays for their mooring. It doesn't give them parking rights. They could, if they need to, use the ramp at Fogland. I know they don't want to do that because they probably don't have a little motor on their little dinghy. So they don't want to row that far. But I didn't pick that mooring spot for them. They agreed to that mooring spot. That area from where the guard shack is, other than the people who own property, belongs to the entire town, except for mean high tide to the water. They don't have a right. They don't have a vested right to that, to put a dinghy in or to go sailing or to do the windsurfing because they're not on the beach. No, it's our beach area. That entire area belongs to the town.
Does everybody get all that, Sarah? As far as
the kids have been telling people that they have to pay, even if they're going to the Cove. There's a few people that give them a hard time. And I know like one of the gate attendants is like, there's probably about 3 people and I could point them out every time they drive up. She like knows who's going to give her a hard time. But some of people are like, oh, it's about time you start charging people to go here. And it's people who go all the time. So people are getting used to it because it's the same people who come every weekend. So we're having less complaints as time goes on too.
Oh, I just wanted to bring this up with Chris, because of just what the kids are confronted with this. And in fact, I was there doing the beach detail and there was a Rhode Island State Trooper, a sergeant who I know. And I said, oh, sure, find time for you to show up. And he goes, wow, what's going on? But anyway, I don't want to take time away from this meeting, but he basically said, what do you mean? He goes, I'm going to go back there, but you guys take care of this. This is yours. So I went, okay. That's enough for me. That's all, Chris. I just wanted.
No, I don't want the kids to get in arguments either. That's not. They are kids and they shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
But I agree. Take their plate down, call the police, and when they're down there, just send them down to the Cove and deal with them.
Okay.
But we might want to talk to Chief Jones about. I don't know if we could put a sign up there, like for any time, if the gatekeepers come at, 9 o'clock or what time they come.
Right.
That as people drive through, you park here at 9 o'clock, you're obligated to come pay your fee. Otherwise, you will get a parking ticket.
Yes.
It's just not right. It's,
Right.
And the staff shouldn't have to go down there and chase them around.
Correct.
If I was to do that and I saw a sign as I come in, even if I didn't see it, if I'm told about it, or if you see the policeman going around giving tickets because you didn't pay, you better get your butt up and pay. I'd rather,
Exactly.
or pay it in the ticket. I don't care,
Yep.
We,
I agree.
Great idea.
I agree, Chris.
a couple of Saturdays ago, Joe and I were down at Fogland. This guy pulled up and he said he was a very important person in the town. And we told him, $15 because he had a mass car. And he said, well, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to leave. Well, he went in, never turned around, never came back. We found him. He was down in the gut or the cove or whatever, all set up on the beach enjoying it. And he felt as though he didn't have to pay because he was going there. And like, I agree with Chris, what he said. Anybody that enters that road is on beach property, and you have to pay to use that road. And we should be charging everybody.
Well, you can't charge the people on property back there. That's the only one.
Right, yeah, you
But I
can't
know
charge
that
the people who don't.
The staff do get to know who they are, and we work.
Yeah. Like at this point, we know the cars who live there.
Oh yeah, the cars. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ones that come in and say they're going to the gut and they just go anyways without paying. Those are the ones that we, and again, we went down there, Joe, what was about maybe 15 cars down there that day?
But
At
they,
least-
And not one of them had a parking pass.
Right. So, I mean, we've identified a couple different situations that come up. Sarah and I had discussed exactly what Chris is talking about in terms of getting some better signage, not only at the front entrance, specifically at Fogland, but setting up signage that reminds people of what their responsibilities and how they use the beach and what they're responsible for. So we'll follow up on that and get some signs made. I basically said Sarah and I will work on what the content is, and then we'll get them posted. If other people have ideas for specific signage we should be putting up, let us know. And I think we can also talk about from a policy and protocol standpoint, what you described, Bob. If you're seeing 15 cars down there, what's the checklist, right? You see the cars, call the police, have them come down, do a sweep through, and address the situation with each of the people there.
But the thing is, you don't want to be tying the police department up all the time, 10 or 15 times a day going down there for these guys. I mean, something has to, we have to address it somehow. I'm going to tell you now, I will be down there Saturday morning at 7 o'clock down at Fogland. I will be down there, and we'll just see what happens from there.
Your recreation hat on.
Yep. You're going to bring yours, Joe, both of us?
I don't know if I'll be there.
We'll be like the twins.
Chip and Dale.
Brothers, only an ugly.
All right.
There
So
we go.
are there any other general comments on this particular topic? Again, Sarah, I know we kind of morphed your presentation. Is there anything else that you want us to be aware of?
no, you guys got it all down.
I'm still.
All right. I'd like to just adjust the agenda for a second because we've got Dave Paul on the line. Would anybody have an objection to moving partner project reports up to this point?
No objection from me.
All right. I'll give a 30-second town farm renovation committee update, and then I'm going to ask Dave to chime in on the dog park. On town farm, Chris and I spoke today. We're going to work on getting the grant into the DEM, so it's signed off, and I've got to get on the agenda for the town council, I think in 2 weeks, to
I
get some
talked to Nancy
formal.
about that. She's carving space out, but
Beautiful.
not something to go on the agenda.
Cool.
And whatever backup material you're gonna have, so.
Yeah. My intent is to give an update to the council and then also relay what our fundraising plan should be so that we can start to get approval on things like pavers and other places that we can recognize sponsors and donors. So more to come. That committee is meeting, I believe, next week, if I'm not mistaken. So if anybody's interested in sitting in, it's the 22nd is that group's meeting. All right. On that note, Dave, go for it.
All right. All right, so real quick then, I guess as far as the update for the dog park, we are slated to be on the next agenda for the library board. What we plan to discuss there is, obviously the overall plan, but access, which we call Plan A, from the parking lot of the library to the entrance of the dog park, with Plan B, being an entrance that would weave down from the corner of the dog park area to Roosevelt. We also want to bring up to them clearing some of that overgrowth, the grass, maybe putting a picnic area for, and more as a common area for both the dog park and for the library patrons if they want to sit, they want to relax and read a book, whatever it may be. So that's, I want to say the 24th, slated to be on that agenda. And we're looking to have a meeting ourselves. We're just wrestling right now between Zoom or an in-person meeting down at Boogamosh Park. I did talk to
Great.
Barbara Pelletier today, and Barbara is not familiar with Zoom. So,
Cool. Well, good progress, Dave. Thank you to you guys for trucking it forward. As always, if there's anything you guys need from us, let us know. I mean, we're here. We
yeah,
keep you on the agenda.
yeah, we're trucking along. It's just, it's hurry up and wait in between meetings is what it comes down to. Once we clear the library hurdle, other than COVID, it's full throttle for whatever we need to do. That's that. I do have a side note unrelated.
Okay. Before we jump to that, Bob, also, because I know you've been involved in the process from the Rec Commission side, is there anything that you want to add to what Dave said?
Me?
Yes.
Hey, yo,
yes.
Bob,
No, I'm set. I'm all set.
Okay. Cool. Dave, what was your other question? Or
Now,
comment?
the side note being that I want to give props to Sarah for saying what she said earlier as far as checking in on your staff from that incident yesterday as the Heart Safe Community Coordinator. And also, you have a temporary set of pads in that AED courtesy of Tiverton Little League until I can get the battery for our unit. So,
Thank you.
but there you go.
We
So,
did
thank you,
order
Dave.
some. Did you order them? I got the
no,
invoice sent to me. Someone ordered them.
We did.
Yeah, I got called down to town hall this morning and I finally found them a website they can get them at. And then Chris's secretary ordered them.
All right,
So,
thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
no problem.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
I'll continue to watch, but take care.
All right, David, thank you.
Bye, buddy. Just a quick note, because it's been brought up a couple times. So as many of you probably know, there was a fatality at Grinnell's yesterday. It was a gentleman who passed away. I don't want it to be a focal point of this particular discussion, but I do want to extend our condolences to that gentleman's family, and also say that if there's anybody that has questions or concerns, I'd encourage them to speak with either the Tiverton Fire Department or Police Department. Thank you to those of you that were down there yesterday. I know Chris was down there. Ed, you were there. Joe, I think you said you also were down there at a certain point. So, and Sarah, thank you and your staff for handling it. Tough situation. And please make sure that your staff know that we're here for them if they need anything to support them. So again, really unfortunate situation, but it sounds from the initial view like lifeguards handled it as best they could. And, so.
one question I would have, did you, Kate was here today, okay? The lifeguard.
I can't
Yes.
hear you.
I
Did you?
said, did you communicate with the lifeguard today to make sure she
Yeah.
was, that's
Yep.
kind of, okay. Just
Yep.
wanted
So
to-
she actually was scheduled to work today as well at Fogland. So yesterday I asked her if she wanted the day off and she wanted to come into work. So Ed actually went down there this morning to see her, and I was there this afternoon with her. So, and she said she's doing okay. So.
I spoke, Chris, also to her mom. Her mother was
good.
there. And I asked her, as you said, for her to, leave, just go. And which we did. It was like 20 minutes to 3. We shut the beach down. And her mom was with her, bringing her an iced coffee. And I just said to the mother, I said, how's your daughter doing? She said, Ed, I talked to her about it last night. And she said, Mom, I'm fine. And she said, okay. She didn't push the envelope. She didn't, So I said, you know something? She's fine. I said, and then I spoke to her and I said, Ariana, Did you learn or what did you get out of this? What do you think you could have done better? And she said, I did exactly what I knew to do. And I said, well, kudos to you, because there was a woman that walked up to her, a mother, and said to her after I had talked to her at Grinnell's, and she said, thank you very much for watching over my children while this was all going on, because you have a tendency to not leave your post. You're not supposed to, but you have a tendency to go and react. And she did just what she was supposed to do. So kudos to her and her training. Yes, she's 17 years old. Hopefully it never, ever, ever happens to anybody in the course of the years that we're here, but it does happen. So, and again, looking at the film at the police station, the gentleman was out of her realm, as I say, out of her domain, and doesn't justify the poor man passing. He also had some medical issues too. So, again, it doesn't make it better. For his family, obviously, sucks. But I talked to Joe about it because he was down there with Lieutenant Costa, and Joe enlightened me on some things about things that go down like that, and Joe was right again.
From experience, they'll say they're okay, but
Right.
they keep it in and it bothers them.
They keep it in.
I just wanted to make sure somebody talked to her.
Yes, I did.
Yep.
I talked to her and her mother, and mothers know. And I said to her, if you don't feel you're up to it, Ariana, by wanting to go home doesn't mean you quit. But I remember when I was a kid, when you fell off the horse, you got back on. And that was the right, I think it was the right thing for her to do. And her attitude was upbeat, Chris, and everyone. So, okay. And you were there this afternoon, Sarah, so,
Yep. And she was
up for the task.
Yep. She was definitely up for it. And
okay.
So, yeah.
Let me just say something, and I'm speaking from experience here, and Joe can back me on this. It might not hit her now, but you have to keep an eye on her.
Yep.
Of
Because
course you do, Bob. Of course you do.
In about a month,
it
could be it's going to affect her.
Right.
I had seen a lot of things in my life, and it's one thing that happened 33 years ago, and till today, it still haunts me.
Right.
Joe knows what I'm talking about. So just because she's saying everything's okay, everything's all right, everything's okay, it doesn't necessarily mean it is. And believe me when I tell you that.
I would, out of respect for the family it's involved, I wish that we could just move on from this, because it is, difficult for everybody involved, but I appreciate what the staff has done.
Thank you all. All right, so we're on to general business. Some of the things that we've touched on a little bit. The first item up is beaches, and this is all just for discussion, budget status and protocols and policies. We've talked a little bit about policies and protocols right now, but my budget question really, I think, is directed, Joe, at you and Chris. Just an update on timelines for us on not rec in particular, but what should we be keeping in mind as we're going forward? What do you want to look for us in sort of the next process for FTR and budgeting? What do we need to know?
So, for budgeting purposes for next year, I need a little bit more time to put that together. I mean, I know we're in the middle of doing it, and I think what the budget committee had come up with, what looked like for the 2021 budget was appropriate. I just don't know if everything that should be in it is in it. I don't know if DPW is still carrying costs that we should probably put in recreation. And right now it's a matter of mechanics just to get things paid and to get things done, and I'm fine with that. But really, we should have a true budget for what represents recreation, whether it's the beaches or other issues as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, because we talked about when we developed the last budget was having things like the porta potties and the maintenance go into DPW, and then the other pieces like staffing and sort of oversight and then leagues go into rec. And so obviously there's been no summer camp, so it's been piece off. But looking at 2021 and starting to think about now what that's going to look like for next year, and if there's any changes we should make. So
So when would you do summer camps? It would be in July anyhow, correct? It wouldn't be in May or June, would it?
right.
It's out, Chris. It's out,
I
Chris.
would say you'd be looking at the 22 budget for that.
So go off of what we got already. Yeah.
Yeah, because this year we missed it. We didn't have a
Right.
program. So, yeah, that would be in next year's budget.
But we should look at how it's formulated for the rest of the budget to make sure that it's a true budget for recreation, that we do have enough money to deal with staff. And if we aren't doing issues this year that we have, if we're not doing the appropriate amount of staff, I need to know that so that we can ensure that we do put in the right amount of money for staff. I'm new at this, as much as, you know, probably more new at recreation than most of you. So I don't know what, you know, the historical trends have been and what we have been doing in the past. And if we're skimping too much on this, then we really should put together an appropriate budget for it. So, and I'm not opposed to putting it in. I mean, it's gonna go to the FTR at some point, so.
I've been keeping track of like everything we are spending. So on this, like the staff that's working, and then also like things that we need, like, because there's some things that like when they test the water and like different things like that, it's like recurring expenses that like we have no choice but to do. We can't like not, you know what I mean? Like things we can't skip out on. So I've been keeping track of all of that stuff. So we should have an idea of like the true amount that we're spending or that we need to spend.
Okay.
So
I did make a donation today. I got a call from one of the parents of the lifeguards about Grinnell's and not having any shade. So I did go buy an umbrella today and brought it down there and bungee cord it to the. So,
I ordered some umbrellas too.
I know, I told him that but he was concerned. It's brutally hot out. The sun could be bearing with no shade.
Yeah.
And I did tell her, I said, look, just because you're not glued to this chair, if you need to go up underneath that canopy, you can still see the entire beach from up there.
Right.
Get under some shade.
Yep.
Do
The
it.
umbrellas break.
With an umbrella, it may not, you know, be sufficient enough to cool down a little bit.
Right. And the umbrellas break all the time because it's so windy down there.
And we need to find some way to secure them and that we don't have that issue, but.
Right.
Can we do bulk umbrella purchases?
Well, I know we bought some, but it's got to be the method on how we're attaching them to the chairs.
Yeah.
You can build the back of the chair up and put a wooden top over it.
Yeah, the
That's what they do out in California.
Get the DPW guys down there to put a, you know, piece of plywood up
Plywood.
there.
Yep.
Yeah, like, you know, they don't have enough other things to do today, and I'm not minimizing it, but I did feel bad that you know, they should have at least some shade. I hope those umbrellas come in quick.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at what the plans would call for to do something like that, because we may be able to get some you know, non-DPW town volunteers to help just do something like that if we can get the materials. So I for one am willing to help. So all right, Chris, is there anything else that you need us to know, or Joe, anything from a town council standpoint?
No, I think you guys are doing fine. You know, I think you're doing fine. I don't know what the real protocol should be or what the history's been, but I mean, if we're limping by, we're limping by. We're doing pretty good at it. Sarah's doing a pretty good job, and you know, I know that, you know, we're going to get our fair share of complaints, and that's just the nature of what we do.
Yep.
We're a town governmental agency, and we do get complaints about everything. So,
Chris, the one question I had asked you this morning, did you ever find out about if
I did inquire. This is we got an inquiry about whether or not when the gatekeepers leave, should the
Oh yeah.
should the lifeguards be there for a period of time afterwards to kind of like address the people who are there, to let them know that there's going to come a point in time when there's, you know, that services are not going to be available. That, you know, I don't know how that's worked in the past, but I really haven't got a fairly good answer on how it should be. Whether I can't find any protocols here in the office about policies and procedures.
check with the trust? I think the trust was who said that
Okay.
previous years. I believe it was the trust.
So I know that we did this thing with the trust through a Red Cross evaluation last year.
Yep.
We have signed up for them to do that again this year, but I will look to see if we have a report that gave critiques and things that we should be doing from last
I
year?
have a report from the Red Cross last year. I don't remember seeing anything like that, but it's a long report. I can also, I've talked to Jim Farrell at South Shore and see if, because he seems to know like everything that has to do with running beaches, and I talk to him quite often. So I can ask him when I ask him about handicap parking as well, if you want me to.
Okay.
Yeah, I can also talk to the folks down in Jamestown because they've been a really good resource. They were when we were going through the grant writing process for Town Farm too. So we'll find out. I mean, I think this is another one of those situations where there hasn't been set definition, so we need to create the definition. Cool. All right. I've got on the agenda here, actually, before I move forward, is there anything else on beaches that anyone else wants to touch on? Nope. Okay. I have fall events and activities, and Rachel sent me her apologies for not making tonight, but I did kind of task her with this. So we've got a number of events coming up through the fall that I think are in question based on current events. And I don't know if there are other ways we can look at adapting them, changing them, still creating opportunities for the town to get together. But I'm going to ask Rachel to kind of dive into that and take a look a little bit more and come back with some thoughts at the next meeting. One note that I will share is that Chief Jones and the police department have been talking about potentially doing like a drive-in movie deal. And I have a call with him on Friday to see if we can support that. May or may not work. I don't know, but I want to give him credit for thinking outside the box. So stay tuned.
Hey, Stu,
Yes.
I do have a thought on fall winter activities. Is a way that we could still have them would be to set up like a reservation style, like still have all the cars set up, but socially distanced apart, but set up where we don't let people just walk in. Unfortunately, you have to sign up and just give them like a 15-minute time slot. Maybe we could do something like that with them this way, and just kind of move them in and out.
Yeah. My thinking is kind of the same as yours. And I know for like the drive-in movie thing, we were looking at the idea of having designated spots that just have a stake with a number, and you reserve a spot online, and then you're given a number, and sequentially you pull into that spot, and there's predefined spacing. And so I think you're absolutely right. You could probably do the same thing with people. We just need to figure out if it's like trunk or treat, for example. I have in the back of my head what that line was like going up the stairs and around the corner, and I'm kind of worried about like even with the space work, so we're going to have to explore it more, and we're going to have to figure it out probably in the next 30 days or so.
Well, again, I think it would have to be, if you're not signed up, you're not allowed in. So
Mhm.
you'd have to block off an area and have somebody checking a list to make sure that they're on there in their scheduled time. And if they're not, sorry.
The Land Trust running a movie in the month of September at Podden. That was on the council agenda the other night. They put in a that.
Yeah.
Just like there is somebody looking at doing that now, so it is possible that could work.
Yeah, I'm game for whatever. I'm not leading the charge on that. I'm just happy to help. So. All right. Next item up is food trucks, which is something we've had sort of floating around for a while. We haven't really had any requests lately, but we need to get our ducks in a row. I have some documentation, but frankly, it's one of those things that hasn't been on the top of the priority list, and I'd love to finish it. I'm wondering if there's anybody on the commission that might be willing to dive into really establishing a food truck application process.
Volunteered.
Chris, did I just see you raise your hand there? Or were you just waving?
Did I volunteer?
I don't know. I saw your hand do this, and I sort of like, it's like one
I
of
might
those.
have volunteered.
Can I ask you to take a look at it? I'll send you. I mean, I made some good progress on it, but I think it's just another set of eyes, and you've got
Absolutely.
good history here.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
send it over. I looked at the one from Newport when they went through all that, so I had some experience looking at that. Still got all the documents.
All right. And so the only other thing that I have on here, and thank you for that, Chris, the beach parking proposal revisited. I don't see us making changes this year, but I think we've talked about we spent a fair amount of time talking through what we were discussing. RVs are still an item that are on the table. I think we need to look at this whole thing again, right? I think it's got to come back up. I'm wondering if somebody might be willing to take on the parking fees. I thought the comment, I think you made it, Chris, about opening like at South Shore early for residents and then having it be closed off. That's an interesting concept, but I'm wondering if somebody might be willing to take a look at the parking pass proposal that we did before and potentially come up with something that's a winner.
I'll look at that.
Cool.
And I think we're gonna have to lobby the town council, whatever it is, earlier, not drop it on them. Obviously, this year was bad because of everything else going on with the budget. But, I think we gotta start lobbying them now while we're in the summer. People can come down and see what's going on and they'll remember it,
Had we had 7 members at that meeting, it would have passed.
Chris, what do you feel? What's your thoughts on this?
Chris is busy. He's on the phone with somebody.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Making moves.
I think it's a good idea.
Sorry, I am on a call with somebody else. What was the issue?
I was going to make some joke about doubling our budget, but the actual truth
I've
was,
done that before and I got in trouble for it, so don't go there.
no, it's beach parking fees and the proposal we put together. So, curious what your thoughts are on a different tact we could take to reevaluate this.
So let me say that we're never going to get it done for this year. So it's a consolidated effort to try to get it done for next year. Let's package it up with a whole bunch of other fees that we're going to get done on behalf of the town. So I'll get back to you with the timing of this, but we should do it again.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I think for 2021, it might be interesting to look at, instead of just a beach pass, is there a pass that could have other pieces to it, of which the beaches are part of it? I also think, as we talked about with like Fogland, there's some work that we're eventually going to want to do down there. And so how do we encourage people to contribute to projects for beautification? So is there a way to tie in contributions or commitments to a beach pass to help offset that? I don't know, but Bob, thank you for taking it on.
Stu, while you talking about people helping at the beaches, I did reach out to Matt, excuse me, from the high school and Rachel from the middle school about getting volunteers. I haven't heard back from them yet. So probably tomorrow I'll send a little follow up because I don't even know if they're working because it's summer. I don't know if they check their emails. But is it okay if we send, I think Bob did, but maybe we could send out that link that you sent for signups and put it out on like Tiverton Happenings and the recreation page and all those other places. And maybe we could get some hits that way and promote it to the teens as community service.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to do it without talking to anybody.
Yeah, so it's essentially a form that so anybody hadn't seen it, it's a form that says, I'd like to volunteer, here's my availability. And so the intent was to try and get people to help walk the beach and clean it and, do morning cleanups and sort of end the day. Yeah, that'd be great.
Hey, Stu, is Chris still on or is he on another phone call?
He's on a phone.
I can see about
Okay,
this much
all
of
right.
his head. So.
All right. No. The question I was going to ask real quick of him is, when you're going down the Fogland and you take that right-hand turn as you're heading towards the cove, the foliage is overgrowing the road. I just wanted to know from his point of view, if he could just say, talk to Rick tomorrow. And obviously don't waste any time on this, but.
I'll talk to Rick to see if I can have him make a road when they get the bushwhacking.
The bushwhack, yeah, you know where I'm talking, Joe. You know, it's just starting to come into the road now. So, all right.
Hey, Chris, do you have any what's going on with that project you're working on for Fogland?
So right now we're looking at putting in for a grant, and it's a grant basically that's funded for coastal flooding or sea level rise. So the first round already was closed out earlier. The second round is in the fall, and that's what we're going to line up for and try to get in for that. The Fogland's a perfect place. It's got everything that they're looking for. It's got roadway. It's got all kinds of invasive species. It's got dunes that are being grown. It's got drainage issues. It's pretty good. So I think we're gonna have a pretty good chance of getting some funding for that. Primarily take care of the drainage up first, right up the front where the guard station is, it floods. And then possibly some stuff to the road and then continue some dune abatement and just basically beautifying it and bring it back to a nice natural state. So
That'd be
that's in
nice.
process.
Real fast, like guys, and I'm done. I promise. The chief of police has got myself and Josh Mello on the weekends till 2 a.m. in the morning. We rotate days. And we watch Fogland after like 10 o'clock till 2 a.m. in the morning to eliminate these fires. I mean, these are not little fires, they're about 5 foot around. And the following morning I went down there and it was like, holy crap, you could still, the ambers were still hot and the beach was open. Or I shouldn't say the beach was open. It was like around 7:30, 7:45 in the morning. So the DPW had to send down the payloader, put the stuff in the bucket, added some water in the bucket, on and went, as far as that's concerned. So I just want to let everybody know that Chief is trying to do all he can from all these phone calls, and I'm not representing the chief of police by all means. I'm not. It's just he's trying to make it right. That's all. I wanted you guys to know. It's on the weekends. It's not every day during the week, but can't control it all the time. That's it.
Stu, I do have a question about the RVs. Is it supposed to be $25? Is that a day for parking down there?
It's the way that it's written on the webpage. I don't know what's on the head what we came up with, but it's whatever is listed there is what the statement is. So I think it may be. I'm seeing folks nodding, so I remember correctly.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we all know that one RV is going down to Fogland every day, which I don't care. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but it's there before we do anything for passes. So, because I know they're there at 7 o'clock, like every day.
But it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, we need to address.
I mean, and here's the thing about this is that the RV policy didn't change. It's not new. I think we all look at it and go, it can be better, but it's not a new policy the way it's written. Now, was it enforced the way it was supposed to be in the past? Doesn't seem like it. But we can have an offline conversation with the owner of the RV as well, and then also remind them on site that like, hey, you're here. It's $25. So
Get a ticket. Is it a town resident?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They can come in for free then.
If they have the parking pass, they're getting in for free, right? So we didn't limit the parking pass to
RV?
the vehicles.
The way it's worded,
Is-
it's resident free, so that's the issue.
Yep.
It shouldn't be. It should change.
I know.
That's
I agree.
So yeah, is it specific that the resident pass is just for cars?
Nope.
No, it says RV residents are free. So whether it's a RV or vehicle, they're free. That's the argument we were discussing a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Because somebody showed it to us in writing. It says resident, doesn't say RV or car, it says resident.
Right.
That's an issue.
Which is, it mirrors, what it says on the website mirrors what was approved.
Right.
It's not just mislisted on the website and, we could adjust it. That's exactly as how one of the prior recreation commissions approved it.
Yep.
It's very, very vague. That rule right there is very vague. It doesn't.
Right.
It's clear on the website though.
It's one of those things we're going to have to change, and I think it's part of the larger parking fees bill, Bob. As you go through it, that's something we'll have to look at. I'm not opposed to looking. I think South Shore has some really good guidelines on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I also think that the work Chris is doing through that grant, we talked about dedicated RV spots before. I think that makes a ton of sense. And until the town budget comes up with enough for us to come up with like vending machines that can pre-print tickets, we'll have to come up with something better in the meantime.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to get her kicked off the beach because I think she's an asset to that beach.
Oh, I
They
agree.
go there every day. They pick up trash. They're
Yeah.
wonderful people. They're good, to the people that come around them. If they come into any problems, somebody needs something, they help everybody around them.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
kind of want to protect them via there.
And that was a point that I think she made and you made, Bob, is that having people down there, especially later on, and that was one of the things we talked about, is could you do this as like an overnight deal and figuring out what the permitting process would be, is it's an extra set of eyes. And that couple in particular, you're absolutely right. They walk the beach, they clean up, they take trash out, like they do everything that we want people who go to the beach to do.
Right.
So
right.
we want to encourage them and not stop them.
Right, exactly. I was
Other
just
things
worried that if we did do the ticketing thing, that they were going to get a ticket.
No, if they're a resident, they wouldn't get a ticket anyhow. It'd be those, because she can get a sticker to put on her windshield, I would think.
Which I don't think is what it was intended, but it's.
I know, but there's no prohibition of it. I mean, it's,
Mhm.
town resident with RVs are free. It's so, how else would you manage it?
There's
Hey, I
also-
got a question about the parking passes. If someone has a parking pass that is not attached to the windshield and they use it on a car that is not, can we
Charge them.
take that parking pass back?
So there is an outline policy on this that I can circulate. And essentially what it says is that if the pass belongs to the town, and if they are using it incorrectly, the town can revoke it. Now, that's not something that the Recreation Commission should be doing. I talked to Chief Jones before, because I ran this past him. He or somebody who he designates should do it. And then if there is an appeal, the appeal comes before us. And then from there, the follow-up, which I don't think it would get to this point, is the probate court. That was what his recommendation was. We can pull the passes. I think the trick here is that if you see somebody who has a pass and it's not attached to a windshield, and Sarah and I did talk about this with her guys, just enforcing that, even if it takes a little bit longer. Tell them to show the matching information to it and say, like,
the license plate.
it should match. And if it doesn't, then there's an issue. Yeah, we got to talk about taking it.
So they write the license plate on the pass. And I've even seen someone who didn't have it attached. And I asked the woman, I'm like, can you put it on? She's like, it obstructs my view. I can't do it. So I just slow down every time. She's like, it's the exact, and it was like, it matched her license plate. At Grinnell's, that's much harder to see because the driver's on the other side.
Yeah. And
but at Fogland, they're like in your face and it matches. And like, I mean, we can't force, especially with COVID, like some people don't want us in their car, like in their space, and we tell them to put it on. And
you don't have to put it on.
Yeah.
But they have to put it on. And it's if you look at pretty much every other beach and rec department.
Oh, I know, it's on.
It's a firm policy of sticker
Right.
goes on window.
When I was down there handing out passes, what I would do is I would peel the pass and hand
Right.
it to them. So this way here, they had no other choice but to adhere it onto the windshield.
Which I told the kids to do that as well. And I've seen kids doing that.
That's a great
Yeah.
approach.
So, and I think a lot in the last like couple weeks, I do think like since I've been giving them reminders and doing all this, like the kids are becoming more strict with like what they're doing. I mean, there's the month of July, I'm not really sure who else has been at the beach except for maybe Ed and me. So,
And me,
Bob.
Joe,
yeah. But,
I go say hello to him every morning.
yeah,
Go down there.
yeah, but I'm saying like,
Take a scooter by.
yeah, but like they're getting more strict with it, and they're getting reminders, and I don't really know what else. to say.
I would think they're probably more comfortable with the rules as well.
Right, as time goes on, they
Right.
get it. So
One other thing that we should look at doing is while we just backtrack a little bit on the RV thing, is there any reason that we can't designate particular RV spots? And if those spots are full, we say there's no RV parking?
I mean, I think we could. There's not many RVs that are down there.
No, I know.
So I don't know. Like,
I think despite the article in the Secundit Times, I think it's overblown. A lot of that was related to COVID restrictions on parking. But we're talking about right now, kind of to the stuff that Chris is working on, having designated spots for RVs. Like maybe it's an opportunity to give it a dry run. So, Sarah, if you want to just, next time you're walking down that direction, just take a look and eyeball it and see what you think. I mean, we don't have to put anything to effect yet, but it might be worth at least talking about, because we're going to try and do it in the future, I think.
I've only
Yeah,
seen
one of the better, go ahead.
That's all I've seen.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen like 4 or 5 RVs down there, at one time, other than 4th of July. I mean, most of the time, it's only like 4 or 5 of them.
I don't even think there's that many.
Yeah, I've seen about 4 or 5, the most.
Like Sunday, we had a completely full parking lot and I didn't see one RV. So,
yeah. Yeah, if you're gonna do it, probably the best place is to the left of where the bathrooms are now, to the left of the lifeguard stand, all the way over.
mhm.
And the other thing, I know it hasn't been an issue this year or last year because the boat ramp there is pretty horrible, but a lot of people do want to park their trailers somewhere. So they're parking at the end of the boat ramp there, but that's also become the unofficial place for people to sneak on the beach.
Right. And
So if you go by the, where the boat ramp is normally 4 or 5 cars, and people kind of like walk over that way and double, triple park inside where that is. And that's where the trailers usually go. So then if the trailers can't go there, they go over to the beach.
yep.
So it might
And
be something to put
Josh Mello was down at the boat ramp on Sunday kicking people out who were
Yeah.
parked there.
Probably should have a sign that says, trailer parking or mooring parking only, and that would be just one little sign to go up there, then that would eliminate that as an issue. Because if you do have a boat out there using mooring, that's kind of convenient. And again, not a ton of people use the boat ramp because it's hard to use.
Yeah.
But I remember years ago, you would go in by the left of the lifeguard stand, there would usually be 7 or 8 trailers there every morning, back when that ramp was a little deeper.
Mhm.
Yeah, so-
Can anybody tell me when Fogland closes?
What was that?
When does Fogland
Does
close?
anyone know what time Fogland Beach closes?
Like when the kids leave?
No, the beach itself, like Grinnell is 10 o'clock.
Does Fogland have a closing time?
Do we have a designated closing time for Fogland Beach?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 10 o'clock, according to the town order. It's all parks and recreation areas. Correct, Chris?
It
Okay.
says,
So I
But
believe,
because
10. It says it on the website. It says
10 o'clock.
But without a
Maybe
gate
sign
there,
it.
it's sort of hard to control.
Right, I understand that, Bob. So that's, I said enough's enough, and I was throwing people out at midnight Sunday.
so, I mean, we could ticket people. I mean, I've been here at Town Hall many years ago, having meetings and have had late meetings till like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And there's a sign out here that says that we're closed here after 10 o'clock. You're not supposed to park. And some of the guys came out and had parking tickets on their cars after.
Nice.
So, that was back in my budget committee days, but, and I do know that I have a fellow who goes down to Fogland like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Chief Jones is well aware of him. He doesn't drink, he doesn't do drugs. He goes down there to meditate and plays music on his, guitar. And
Yep.
I told him, I said, deputize him so he can be down there and rat out the guys who actually had down there,
Yeah.
fireworks. So I don't know if he can do that, but it would be nice to have, some RV people down there and, could do spend the night down there and help monitor what's going on. And to be able to call the police when they need to. So, I think that venue that Little Compton does is not a bad idea, but it would not be for this year. It would have to be for next.
Yeah, and we got to figure out how to account. I mean, there's still residents down there, and it'd be nice. I mean, at the end of the day, it'd be really cool just to put a gate up that would inconvenience the people that live down that way. So,
Yeah.
something I consider. But in the short term, Sarah, why don't you and I connect on some signage, and we'll get
Okay.
a couple different things. And I just wrote down like trailer parking in addition to the other ones we talked about. No fires on the beach, just as a reminder. Which
There's a sign that has that already.
we may need more. Maybe in the middle of the beach, in the shape of a fire.
Reading is a
I
requirement.
still have a question about the signage. Does it say no smoking?
I
No,
don't think it does.
nope, that's not.
I think, does the day pass say no smoking though? Because I know there's a list of rules on that
I
actual
don't know.
pass, but we'll look into it. And
Bob, didn't you have a situation with that?
Yeah, we did. And I believe we had a situation down there where somebody's complaining about somebody smoking. It's not so much the smoke. It's
Trash.
littering, the way they put up the cigarette butts, they're littering the beaches. And I've actually seen children and adults step on hot cigarette butts. You know, they don't put them out, they just flick it and it lands in the sand. Some little kid walks by, steps on it. So people say, well, it's not secondhand smoke. It's littering the beach and improperly disposing of the cigarettes. I believe, isn't there something on the sign? I know there was something in our paperwork that says there is no smoking on the beaches.
So it's also a state law, isn't it? No smoking on beaches in Rhode Island?
At the state beaches, yes.
And just to be clear, the day pass, 'cause I just pulled it up, says that littering carries up to a $500 fine. So, I mean, I fully acknowledge that that's sometimes tough to enforce, but it says it on the pass that people get. But let's look at our signage. We'll see what we've got. If there's places we can do more and do better, I mean, based on what you guys are talking about. Probably makes sense. Okay. Just a quick last thing that I had is that we're still in communication with the different leagues on doing practices and potentially getting into competition on the fields. Chris and I have talked pretty regularly, and I've been in communication with the different leagues who, especially like Little League and soccer, have been great, really respectful, want to do all the right things. Softball, men's softball, same kind of thing. Really haven't encountered too much pushback. If you haven't seen the state's reopening guidelines, they're actually really good. It's reopeningri.com, and they're into phase 3. They have a whole bunch of stuff that we're looking through. So in phase 3, playgrounds are eligible to be open, or some of the other things. It says in here, restrictions should be flexible so that managers can adjust limits up and down. Like it gives towns and organizations a little bit more flexibility. But one of the questions we're getting now is about competition between different teams and ones coming from different towns out of state and in state. And so trying to formulate a plan to be able to share with those leagues. I don't have an answer. I have just to go back and look at it, but only wanted to let everybody know that we are aware that it's something people want to use our fields. There have been a couple folks that just decided to, and I appreciate the police helping out and reminding them that you can't just show up and run a practice. But we'll make it work. And yeah, we're getting waivers for everybody who's using fields as well. Those have been collected into the digital version of them, so we've got them on file.
I think that they wrestled with the Florida basketball leagues that were trying to use our Boogamarsh courts. Every other morning they were doing scrimmages there.
I just assume if it's a basketball, Joe's got it covered. So
Yeah, Chris, is Longplex open or are they shut down?
No, they're open.
How about
I went by that today and I saw like about 40 kids out front of
Yeah,
it.
they're having summer camp at Longplex.
how about
He's filed plans. So
they yard sales yet?
that I have yet to be able to find. There is some new guidance on the flea markets. I think that they can open up a little bit more. But the yard sales I have yet to been able to find. And I know we checked with the clerk today. They have not issued any licenses yet. So they haven't heard anything through the clerk's office yet either.
I do have a question about the sports use of fields. I know some of the high school kids are getting together and not officially practicing using different fields or courts or whatever. Do they need to they should be filling out those online forms to use like Boogamarsh or Town Farm or something like that?
yeah, so if it's a practice, if they're getting together and there's a group, the big thing the state keeps stressing is the phrase stable groups, right? So in phase 2, it was 15 kids to 2 coaches. There's
no coaches involved.
right. So I guess the way I'm looking at this is if you've got like 3 or 4 kids and they're just going and kicking around a ball or something, maybe no. if there's something that's more organized than that, then yes, they need to submit a form. And it's not that we're necessarily stopping people from doing it. What we're asking for based on the guidance is, what is your COVID plan? And while I can't give them recommendations based on from a rec commission spot, I can also give them what other people have had approved, and direct them to the resources on the state's page to come up with something themselves and just kind of evaluate it. So we're not trying to make it a hard process at all, but we do need to have it so we know what happens if something goes wrong. Yeah. So if they have any questions, just have them reach out too.
So is there any reason why they're not using the schools, fields and facilities?
I'm not real. I don't think it's sanctioned by schools, so that I don't think that's why they're using the schools.
That's
Is
probably-
my guess. I don't know this for sure. But I do know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop the just so everybody can, if you want to take a look, the link to the sports field thing into the chat box. It's the one off reopening reorg.ri. It's the phase 3 youth and adult sports guidance. If anybody who's watching this wants to pull it up, but cool. All right, I don't have anything else beyond that. We're 5 minutes before 8, which is what I said our stop would be. Is there anything else that we're missing in here? I've no new business, but anybody else have anything you want to bring up?
Appreciate all good work.
Cool. Well, again, thank you guys. I look forward to getting back into in-person meetings. Specifically want to say thank you to Ed and to Chris and to Joe and to Sarah for being there to support with the situation yesterday. Just a tough one. And again, our condolences to the family of that individual. And Sarah, great job to your staff for, especially that lifeguard for pulling through. And if she needs us, we're here.
Okay, thank you. I will let her
And
know.
I just like, one thing I'd like to mention is that Dan has to stop so much at these meetings. All right, Dan.
I didn't hear
Got
what
it, Joe.
Joe said.
Next time I'll stop.
He said he's buying you coffee tomorrow
Dan's going to leave the next meeting, so I don't talk as much.
and donuts.
Said I'll buy you coffee tomorrow, okay.
That's what I need, some coffee.
Good night. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right. Cheers.